The backyard golf course build, it's coming along quite well. We've got the gravel layer of the golf greens almost done. The USGA Rootzone mix, it's coming in just a couple days. So I have to get on to one of the most important jobs here, and that is irrigation. While this is a backyard golf course, I'm going to be setting up more of a residential irrigation system. This is a similar system that you can do on your very own lawn. I'll be going with this powerful electric pump to push water, and we'll be using a lot of this poly pipe. During this golf course build, I have struggled with my base soil, which is a sand and gravel mix. However, the payoff with that is the water table's high in it, and when you dig a hole here, there is a lot of water. When we moved to this property, there was actually no pond here. It was a low, wet area, and I hired an excavator, and in a day and a half, it dug this big hole and it immediately filled with nice water. So having access to so much water is just a home run for this irrigation system. The heart of a great landscape project is the irrigation system, and we need to make sure we can push enough water to each sprinkler head, and we need to make sure that those sprinkler heads are spaced properly. 2 summers ago, I did a fairly substantial irrigation system on the front yard, and that lawn has come in excellent. I had perfect head-to-head coverage, perfect water flow, perfect pressure, but it was terrifying to lay out. If you miscalculate your zone size and your water pressure and your sprinkler placement, you could have a disaster. After your pipe and sprinklers are all in place in the ground, and then you hook the pump up, it is way too late to make adjustments. So that was terrifying the last time I did it. So this time I want to actually do a test run, put some pipe above ground, hook some sprinklers up, and see how far I can shoot water. I tried to find the largest electric pump that I could run here. This is a big 2 horsepower, 220 volt, 15 amp pump. So it's going to push some water. These retail for about $2,000. I found this one for actually $300 used. 2 ladies had, I believe, a large cannabis operation set up. So they were pushing a lot of water with this. I'm hoping it works. I've never tried it, but I slashed the budget, saved some money there with this one used, hoping it works and hoping it pushes a ton of water. And because I'm not using a giant water pump station here, I can get away with this poly pipe. This is high density polyethylene pipe. The majority of the lines will be 1 inch, 25 millimeter poly pipe. This is only a quarter of the pile. I'm going to attempt to lay down 2,000 feet of pipe, many sprinkler heads. This is a fairly large area, and I'm taking the time. I've done the work. I'm bringing in the topsoil. I'm buying some pretty good grass seed. I want to take care of this turf. I want it to look as good as possible. So that being said, I have to put the time in on the irrigation system where I just want to hit a switch and know that every square foot of this property is being watered. So this will be a massive job shot over multiple days. The first thing I want to target are the 2 golf greens. I want to get the water pipe, run around the perimeter, and get my sprinkler heads placed in there where I can get good coverage, because that Rootzone mix is showing up any day now for the golf greens. I have to get that spread so that I can get my bent grass seed put down this year, because we're getting late in the year and I need germination on these greens very soon. With the fairway and the green shaping now complete, I've been waiting for the Rootzone mix for a couple of weeks now. However, the trucks hauling for me are tied up with road construction, but they promised me the first rain day they'll be coming. Big day, actually a huge day. It feels like Christmas morning. The USGA Rootzone mix is showing up today. The Rootzone mix is the key material in a golf green. It is what the bent grass grows in. I need 128 metric tons of this material, so that is 4 trucks total. 2 are coming today and 2 will come next week. So I've cleared off an area at this golf green for the material and an area at the other golf green. I'm excited to see this material. I've never actually seen it in person. I've got the fairway all nice and clean here so the trucks have lots of room to turn around and maneuver. And now we just wait. They should be here any minute now. Well, there we go. 32 ton here, 32 ton at the other green, USGA Rootzone mix. It kind of looks like sand, but is more expensive than sand. So this is 80-20 mix, they call it. 80% sand, 20% a special peat. I'm thinking it's probably just a peat moss, but they call it a special peat. When this project is done, I will promise to share all of the cost of this backyard golf course. I think it's gonna be surprising. I think it's gonna be on the lower side than you'd expect. But this for sure was one that I was on the fence on. I simply didn't have a plan B. A couple people on YouTube have built backyard golf courses, but they haven't used the USGA sand because of the cost. I paid $33 US a ton for this sand, so you can do the math on what that cost. The trucking also adds to the cost of this, and that's something I really thought about. Do I really need USGA sand in a backyard course? But I've been at this very, very part-time for a couple years, poking away, moving dirt, shaping, doing all this stuff. The last thing I really wanted to do is have a regret over a couple $1,000s where I just couldn't grow a premium golf green. I want to grow some nice grass here. I want to putt on some nice grass. I want to learn how to do that. I want to learn how to maintain it. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think if I don't have this dirt underneath that grass, I'll always have that in the back of my head. Could I have done better? That's my thinking on the Rootzone mix. I am never going to have an opportunity to build a golf course again. So I just want to put the best materials and components I can into this place to make it look and play as best I can, and just to simply have no regrets. That is not going to work. This thing is way too small. I assume the rental place had a larger one that would move itself and run itself, but I have to physically pull this thing around. There is no way I can do 2,000 feet here. This has been a tough day weather-wise and equipment-wise, and of course, to top it all off, I hit my drainage trench. Just took the top off the pipe with the trencher. Certainly a bit of a waste of time renting this thing, but I'm gonna make some use of it, try and at least do the perimeter of both golf greens because it is my softer material, and mostly because I gotta get this Rootzone mix in and get seeded here to get some germination on that bent grass where I'm running out of days. The first part of this irrigation that I want to lay out is where my valve box is going to go. And I think I'm actually best right up here on this little ridge. This is the water pipe coming from the pump, and I'm going to build in 2 valve boxes here. I have a pretty big system. I'm going to run it off 1 pump, but I'm going to set up the valves where I can run it off of 2 pumps in the future if I choose to. I like the valve box up here on the hill because in the winter we freeze, we get frost that deep. So all of my water lines are going to be frozen. So I have to make sure I get them cleaned out and have no water in there. And the nice thing being on the hill is no water is going to sit here. I'm gonna make some room here so I have lots of space to go with all of my zones. I might have up to 10 zones on this one, so it's gonna be a big system. I've been keeping these trees and bushes here mainly because I have absolutely no trees on this property, really. It was an old gravel pit, so not much left here. I'm gonna have to just get rid of them. I wanna clean this area up so we have lots of room to come out of this valve box. It is a cold and nasty day today, but it's a huge day because we're going to test this irrigation system. I've actually strung out almost 400 feet of pipe with 50-foot zones and 5 of these Hunter I-25 sprinkler heads mounted all above ground. I want to see this thing run above ground before I put all this pipe in the ground and then regret some decisions that I made on distances. This is kind of insane to set up above ground, but I really have to see how much water that pump will push before I can do the math on my sprinkler head spacing. And all that pipe runs back to here. This is my water line, and it will be hooked into this giant 10-zone manifold system. I'm kind of in the dark on how many zones I actually need until we run this test today. Once the water's flying through this line, I'll see how many heads I can do, how far they can shoot, and then how many zones I need. Once I know how much volume of water this system can push, then I can dial in the individual spray heads. You can change these nozzles, they're color coded, and each one puts out a different volume of water. So I can take the individual spray heads and then try and max out the amount of water that I can put down without losing distance of spray. We've got water. That pump is awesome. This is almost 400 feet from the pump right here. I have 5 of the Hunter I-25 rotors going. How great does that look? I love the sound of water going through the rotors. It's nice and quiet, smooth. That's a lot of water spraying right there. Love our coverage. This is going to work great. I was very nervous about this. I'd never run that pump before. This is a super long run. I'd never use these rotors, but they're working pretty good. They're just propped up with bricks right now, so they're kind of sideways, but I love it. This is gonna work well. I plumbed the pressure gauge in and we're running 40 pounds, no problem with those 5 zones. Very windy day, but it's kind of a good day to see this in action because it's going against the north wind and it can still push some water into that wind. I have 50-foot spacing here and I think it's just a little too far, so I'm gonna dial that back probably on my final plan, maybe 45 feet. I think that's gonna work great. but I love the volume of water. I really want to get a lot of water out of that pump, and we definitely are. Now that I've seen this in action, I'm confident. I'm going to go mark out the greens for sprinklers. I'm only going to use 4 rotors at the larger green and only 3 at the smaller greens. This is the drainage line from the golf green, and I cut through it doing these trenches like a fool, and I got to get the dirt out of there and fix this pipe before we get the irrigation brought across it. I'm almost done this green. Do not tell my wife that I took these from the kitchen in order to dig mud out of this pipe, but they work great. They really do. When we do the full golf course with irrigation, I will do strictly an irrigation video in detail with that. This is sort of a homeowner setup. I've got the 1-inch poly. I've got a lot of tees going around where my other sprinklers are, but at the end of the run, I just use a 90. I come into here, we have the male adapter. So this, we just take our rotor and screw it on, and that's where it sits forever. But I don't know my heights yet because this is just raw dirt here and I don't have my topsoil yet. So I'm actually going to just hook up this piece of pipe. This is not a proper fitting here. This is just a threaded end with a pipe that fits over it. So if I heat this pipe up enough, I can shrink it down with a clamp and hold that on there. And that's going to show me where this is in the ground in case we hit it with the skid steer, the tractor, the dump truck. This can bend, this can kind of snap and break, and I don't wreck my good sprinklers. So that is warm. That'll sit on there. And with the heat, I can compress that pipe pretty tight on there. So that's now just going to hold on there, not let any dirt in. This is all that this is really for, to indicate where this is in the ground and also not let any dirt in. I have the top taped shut. This is now tight, so we shouldn't get any dirt in our system. And I can now bury the rest of the pipe, and then these guys are just popping up all over the place. And then at the end, the very end, when the topsoil's down and I'm ready to seed, I will go back, take these off and put my rotors on. So that's the plan, hoping it's going to work. Up next, it's time to build and shape the 2 golf greens.